Welcome back, everybody. It's week 3, about to start up tonight in the AHLPSN side. Glad you could join us today for the show. I'm T. Sibbs. We got Vibes, Cosmo, Princess Zeus here with us for the show. And we got a lot to talk about from week 2. Lots of changes in players and teams and in standings, and a couple of teams having a rough week. Again, this is AHLPSN This Week on LG. And again, everyone, I'm T. Sibbs. Got Vibes here, as I mentioned, with me, and Princess Zeus and Cosmo. Gentlemen, how are you doing this week?
Pretty good. That theme music gets me excited. Sometimes I feel like it's like one of those old cartoons, like back in the day. I don't know.
I'm alive.
I'm ready.
I'm doing all right.
Let's go.
So, obviously, plenty to talk about, and a lot of things going on, a lot of crap in the shout box, as usual. But, first things first, I wanted to just quickly mention, you probably saw the announcements this past week, or earlier in the week, about myself, Maranaconda, and Vihai being named as media directors now for LG, and we couldn't be more excited and proud of LG thinking of us that way, that we could do that and help out in bringing more media to the website. So we want to thank Brody McDonald and Triss and everybody in the LG group for giving us this opportunity to help bring you guys more content. And if you want to be a contributor, just drop a line to myself, tsibs88, or Maranaconda, or Vihai. We'll be happy to talk to you. We've talked to a bunch of people already. We're hoping to get some CHL media going real soon, and have a group down there who'll bring you regular content as well. So again, just send me a line right on LG. If you have me on Skype, it's also tsibs88 on Skype as well if you want to contact me there. So again, we're happy to be helping the site bring more media to you guys like this show. So let's talk about what's going on in the actual league right now. And we talked a little bit earlier this week, and Zeus, one of the first comments you made is that there appears to be fire sales already in the league, with guys getting traded, getting waived. A lot of movement again this week. It's not uncommon that we've seen this in previous seasons, but we're seeing, because there are so many more players and so many guys that we know over the last few seasons, it's more noticeable that we're seeing a lot of these named players get moved. And as somebody in management, you talk a little bit about the kind of communication that's going on with all the AHL managers, and what is the sense, though? Is it a panic? Is it just that they're figuring things out right away and they're trying to make changes to try and offset some issues? What are you seeing from other management in the AHL this season?
I think it's a little bit of both. A little bit of panic, a little bit of figuring out what to do. But I'm going to kind of say that I disagree in a sense that there's a lot more players. There's a lot more prospects than we've ever had. And very few returning amateur players are actually left around right now. So people are fighting for those remaining amateur players that are like really good on TC somewhere. Mm-hmm. They're trying to trick people to get those players onto their roster so they can call them up. But a lot of the managers know who that player is, and they're like, no, that's our fallback in case we have an issue, whether it be health, family, or they just flat out quit themselves. That's what basically a lot of teams are doing right now. I mean, I even have Cosmo on my roster just in case one of my goalies shits the bed. I can call him up and use him.
So, again, Vibes, you've been around for a long time. So has Cosmo. We'll start with you, Vibes. Though, what do you think is actually happening this season? Is it because it's some of the new management as well who are getting their feet wet in running a team, and they are maybe having a little bit second thought now about what they did for the bidding session? What typically causes this kind of early movement that we've seen in past seasons in LG?
I mean, I think it's a combination of things. Certain people like to trade just to trade. Some certain people don't know what they're doing, and they just make trades out of fear or not knowing what's going on, and they just trade happy, And some people get chloroformed and do stupid things. So,
Kaj, you also have plenty of management experience, and what typically is the reason for a lot of this early movement?
I think it is a multiple of different things. One, it could be new managers and not really happy with who they drafted at first or bid on, thinking that they were going to have all their buddies and come out of the gates, firing on all cylinders.
Right.
Another one, like Vibe said, they're just, they're all excited to, go out and trade, have that tool. So they're just, trading everybody away. And then it could be a lack of confidence. Everybody's freaking out after 2 weeks that they're not winning games, whether they lose 1 or they lose 8. They're just not happy. So they fire, everybody away and start fresh, which leads to more losses.
I'm gonna also say that I'm kind of a cynical person at times. And I think that some people have been traded before, and now they're like, "Oh, now I have the power." You know what I mean? So now that they're gonna pull the trades, and they're trading just to trade. I think it happens. I absolutely think it happens.
I'll get mad and trade someone who traded them in the past.
Yeah.
Well, and also, do we think that again some of this veteran talent that we have in the league, guys that have been around, are they getting a fair shake from some of the newer GMs and AGMs?
Yes and no. It's in certain cases yes, in certain cases maybe not.
That's hard to answer. I believe it's a yes and no answer on that one. Sometimes the newer players are just have more talent than the veterans, and the veterans would like to think because they've been here longer that they're more skilled, when in fact they're possibly not more,
Mm-hmm.
and that these newer players coming in just can step up to the plate and do their job and come home with the cup.
Let's move on to the next topic: education of new LG players. This is something that MGML had brought up, and I think we see this every season again, but certainly we see emails or things in the shout box from new players that like, hey, I just signed up, and it says I'm assigned to a CHL team, but that the rights are to the AHL team. What am I supposed to do? Who do I talk to? And so, some of what we all talked about earlier this week was, what are some of the things we can do to try and remedy that? Maybe it's on the league to try and put out a primer. Maybe we need to do a video for these folks. Again, all three of you guys, management experience. We'll start with Zeus again. What's your best advice to anybody starting out new in the league?
If you're starting out new, you got to start from the bottom. No matter how good you may think you are or who you want to prove it to, you got to prove yourself in the CHL. You got to have 5-6 points a game, shoot 50%, because as soon as you go up to the next level, it's going to be cut in half easily. Those are the players that are thriving right now in the AHL.
Well, that's one issue that we deal with. But as far as like getting involved with your team and understanding what you're supposed to do as a new player, what can the league do? What can we do to improve on getting these guys the right information early on and letting them know what the process is?
I would say either having it detailed in the sign-up, saying this is how things are done, et cetera, like kind of like a tutorial video to a video game.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Have something like that, or an automatic email is sent with Constitution, as well as with step-by-step of what you could do to become a starting player on your current team's roster, whether it be CHL, AHL, but if it's a new player, it's going to be CHL regardless. Something like that would more likely be beneficial for the league itself, because then that's less time that management in both leagues of the AHL and the CHL have to explain to all their new players that they're getting throughout the entire year.
Vibes, how do you now? Some of what Zeus said, I want to touch base on. How do you deal with a guy who, we see this all the time. Hey, I'm a 3 points per game player in club. I'm on a top. I'm on a tier 1 club. We've won so many championships. I'm the next best thing to Gretzky. How do you deal with guys like this who are starting out without? And then this might be a tough question for you. How do you deal with them without telling them to shut their pie hole and just be humble? What do you tell a player like that to maybe get them back down to earth?
Treat them like mushrooms. Feed them shit and keep them in the dark. You need to be receptive. You need to listen. And if you have the time, get out there and get a look at some of these guys, because some of them may be good players. And then there are times where having 3 points per game or whatever, it doesn't really translate. A lot of these guys put up points and drop in games, and games where the competition is at a lower level, then they get to where the big boys are, and they can't quite do it. But you need to, put feelers out there and maybe go and see for yourself what these guys have to offer.
How would you deal with getting new guys involved, Cosmo? What do you typically do?
When I'm management, and I would actually just take some time, and I would look at my TC, figure out what games they're playing in the CHL, and watch some of the CHL games to see how they're playing over there.
Right.
Whether and decide, should I give this guy a chance, to prove himself up in the bigger leagues. I would also tell my players, hey, stay active. You never know when I'm gonna need you. 1 game, 2 games, could get you called up, whether my team or, the opposite team might see you, and they might want to use you. So, you got to stay active, and listen to your, GM of the AHL and CHL, and show that you have what it takes to play in the bigger leagues.
All right, so those are the basic topics for this week. Let's move on to actual team discussion, player discussion. Week number 2 saw a lot of things going on, but one of the things that really stands out is the WBS Penguins, who started off gangbusters, and unfortunately in week 2 wound up going 1-8. And a lot of discussion as to what may have led to this. 45 goals against in 9 games certainly doesn't help. We brought to you live the game of the Wolves and the Penguins on Tuesday night, where the Wolves, it looked like a close game early on, but the Wolves pulled away easily for a 6-1 win. And, a lot of discussion going on about players coming and going. Let's first start with a guy who actually played against them this week in Zeus, your team again, Tuesday night beating the Pens 6-1. From that lineup, what are you seeing with the Penguins that that isn't working now that might have worked in week 1?
I just think that they ran into a bad situation. I mean, they lost Mu Fang. He got called up to the NHL for the week, and he got returned on Tuesday, but didn't play for the rest of the week. I don't know if that's allowed or not, but that's something Bob could clarify more than likely. And then I feel like they just ran into a really tough division because the Western Central came to town. And we pretty much, like all the teams in that division, pretty much wiped the floor with most, if not, or half, if not most, of that entire division. So it's really hard to tell. They could have just had, an off week, lost personnel, or it just could have been the strength of the schedule changed on them so drastically they weren't ready for it.
And they were 8-1 last week, of course. Now 1-8. They're now at 9-9 for the season. in third place behind Hershey and Hartford. Certainly, still, well, it's early. It's not a horrible thing to have happened, but basically, have gone 500 in the first 2 weeks. What do you? I'll throw this out to all of you guys. Whoever wants to answer first. What do you do to combat a 1-8 week?
Just play the next week. That's pretty much it. I mean, I look at this roster and they have a lot of talent. And I know where it went wrong. It all went wrong when they traded for me. That's what really screwed them.
Well, it's maybe a coincidence, maybe not.
But I think there's a couple things going on here. I think one that maybe a few guys who should be playing together aren't. I don't know if the Sniper and Chi-Town are still playing together, but I know that them two have a little bit of chemistry. I'd like to see them two playing together. And then also, I think you have a few natural right wings maybe being pushed over to the left side. I'm not sure where Lim Park has been playing. He's a really good right wing. I don't know how comfortable he is on the left side. But there could be a few things that's going on with this team. But, I mean, to your question, I mean, you just go out there and play. This team will rebound. There's way too much talent on this team to not rebound, and they'll be all right.
Cosmo, anything to add about what you've seen, this season from the Penguins, and do you agree pretty much what Vibe said about them being able to bounce back and just put week 2 behind them?
Well, trading for Vibes was their downfall. As a joke.
Just play me in waivers. What are you talking about?
Did they really? Okay.
It's still a downfall. Anyways, losing Mufang was a huge hit. I was reading what Madden's had posted and some of the other media stuff, and it seemed like Mufang was the main concern for the whole thing. Like, he was their backbone on defense and kept everybody together. And if that was the case, they need to find more than just one D-man who can hold the fort, because it's likely the NHL might take him again. So, But now, to quote Vibes here, the season doesn't start until week 3, so...
That's my boy.
This is when the season starts, so maybe they'll pick it up and, start their season finally.
So, obviously, the Pens having a tough week this past week, and we talked about where they are in the standings. A couple of other teams, and actually, before we talk about that, I did want to touch on the Mufang thing. I spoke to John Sheldon on LG, and he is one of the Bogs. I don't know what the Penguins' mindset was or what they thought the rule was, but he played some games in the NHL, but that didn't mean he couldn't play 3 full ones in the AHL. You can do that. You could play 3 in the NHL and play 3 in the AHL. He just couldn't have gone back up and played more in the NHL, because as soon as you play 3 games for that week in a league, doesn't matter when you did it, you're done with availability in that league. So he couldn't have played in the AHL. We don't know why he didn't play. Maybe there's another reason for it, and we'll get some idea. But if he didn't play because of a misunderstanding of the rule, then the Penguins certainly missed out on having him in 3 games that could have made a difference for them this week. Let's move on to a couple of the other teams. We mentioned Utica and Syracuse, and those guys having having a good week. Utica wound up going 8-1, I believe, this week. They have a 3-game winning streak. They're at 12-3-3 for the season. They're 2 points behind the Marlies now. The Crunch are right behind them at 25 points, a 12-5-1 record. 2 teams who have some good good players on their roster, obviously, and Utica definitely able to get some great play out of their goaltender Skyhawk, who right now is 6-3 with a 1.7 goals against, 86.3 save percentage. He has been lights out this past week. Easily the best goaltender who's played. And again, I kind of think, guys, and throw this out open to everybody, I always go back to defense and goaltending. And when that's hot and playing well for you, that can really carry your team. I think Utica's gotten more than that. But, they're a couple of shutouts this week. They shut out Tucson 1-0 and San Jose 6-0. They lost to San Antonio 2-1, but they're keeping the scoring low. They were able to beat Hershey on Thursday 3-2. So they seem to have obviously a lot of good talent on their team, but they seem to be able to have a really solid defense this week and really hot goaltending to get them there.
Yeah, they've been solid. I mean, you look at the roster and they got some really good players on there. And I'm not going to sit here and rattle them all off, but like you said, they got a solid defense and they got solid goaltending, and they're getting it done. And right now they're pushing up in that East and North division. I know Zeus constantly talks about the West and the Central, and rightfully so, but maybe this Eastern North division can be interesting as well, with 3 pretty solid teams coming out of there, and it would be good, because I feel like that Western Central is always kind of holding the fort down, but the Eastern North seems to be making some noise now here.
Definitely agree with you on that. I mean, they got 6 teams all with above 500 records in their division, so they're no slouch for sure.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. I think they come into town for us next week, I think. So that'll be a lot of good matches that week. But so far, their offense has been pretty consistent. It doesn't look like many of them missed games for that matter. So very little ECU players being used. Good overall plus minuses from the team, so they're playing well 5-on-5. And the goal scoring is pretty much even out. The highest goal scorer for them is Trouble Kid with 12 goals, and then it goes 8, 7, 7, 6, 6, 4, 4, 3, 3, 2, 2. So they're doing pretty good scoring-wise. If their main goal is to keep the scores low, then they're definitely doing a good job of Skyhawk back there. Megan needs to pull up their level of play, because 3.4 goals against average, and they're splitting games. That's not going to bode well come these next few weeks, I feel. But they got a lot of returning players from last season, so they're pretty familiar with each other as it is, and they added a couple of more players to make things a little bit better for their team chemistry-wise. So
They got a lot of guys that we've seen playing in this league for quite some time now. So I guess they probably have players who know what they're doing. They're getting it done.
Yep.
Meanwhile, Toronto, the Marlies are still holding pretty strong, and this past week they went, I believe they went 5-4, but they're still, right up there on top of the Eastern North, 2 points ahead of Utica and Syracuse, as we mentioned. And this Eastern North is rounding into a pretty decent group of teams. Binghamton's played pretty well. Albany has a good roster. They haven't quite hit their stride, but both of those teams are 9-8-1, and I think the Eastern North could wind up being a bit of a struggle. But Toronto seems to be still doing really well. Again, good, solid players on this one. Buds has done a nice job as owner, and their goaltending of It's a Watermelon and Mello have both been pretty spectacular. Mello at 8-2, 2.12 goals against, and Watermelon with a 5-3 record, 2.63. Again, I know I sound like a biased goaltender, but when you see that happening, you almost have to know that team is doing well. And the Marlies, again, not much of a shock to us anymore, guys, but they are, they've got a good, solid lineup with a lot of guys who have some experience and maybe some newer players that have proven that they are that they belong up here. I think Dangletown Sniper, who I had experience with last season with Tucson, is getting his opportunity now, and 4-1-1, 4 goals, 2 assists in 6 games, just doing enough to help his team out. But the Marlies, again, leading their division, and even a not so great week keeps them on top. They look like they are a team that will be there the whole point. Do we agree upon that, or do you see any weakness that could be exposed down the line?
No, I think they'll be there. I think they're a solid team. Sorry, not to cut you off, Cosmo, but yeah, they are. They have a really good offense, but mainly is their defense. They got a really strong defense. They've only allowed 44 goals thus far this season, and that's not the least in the league, but it's down there. And they have a really good defense. That's it's built from the defenders and the goaltending out, kind of like you always say. And they have the offense to get it done too. So I think they'll be there.
I do want to touch on this team. I was looking over their roster. 7 out of their 17 players have gotten the team a point in all their games. Melo has made sure they've gone to overtime before losing it on the 2 losses he does have. So he's keeping them in those games that he has lost with an 8-0-2 record, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to be solid all the way down if these players can keep getting them at least 1 point a game. And especially if the other players who look like no one has more than 2 regulation losses, keeps that kind of play up.
And just to add to that, one of the trades we're going to wind up talking about, I think at some point, or actually no, we're not going to talk about. We're going to talk about a player who's involved in this trade. But Philly's MVP came over from Providence back on February 6th in a trade that have also involved Lobo Dangles, who we'll talk about on the Crunch, but. Philly's 5-0-1 on defense. He's a plus 14 on the left side. And again, another nice move by Toronto to shore up that defense and make them even stronger in that position.
I agree 100% on that. Defense is everything. So
they got Jack of Hearts on the team too. He's 3-0-1.
Right.
6 on the year. And you look at the games that he's been in, and he hasn't been in a game where they've allowed more than 3 goals all season. So defense is getting it done.
Yeah, and credit to Poner, who is the GM, who is also having a nice season for himself at 8 goals and 7 assists, plus 10 for him as well. So, you look at the names: Berger, Dabs will do. You mentioned Jack of Hearts, the Phillies, Shadow Merc. Watery Dolphins on this team. No matter where this guy goes, he seems to wind up being on a winner. And of course, good goaltending. So I think we all agree the Marlies will be there to the end. Let's talk about league leaders in scoring, which we haven't done yet. And I think we want to talk. We're going to talk about a couple of the new names that we all find to be interesting, and we'll get the thought of everybody on that as we get to it. But right now, couple of the top scorers: Lobo Dangles, who I mentioned before for the Syracuse Crunch, a center over there. He's 4-1-1, 28 points total, 10 goals, 18 assists for a plus 9. In season 3, he had a good season there at 17, 6-1, 26 goals, 45 assists, and a plus 17. He was drafted 86th overall by the Bruins this year, traded back over and back with the Crunch for season 4. Again, Lobo Dangles having a nice season so far for these guys, and probably a big reason why the Crunch are doing so well. And Jay Scott, who on the Monsters, a team that is pretty well stacked, undefeated, 6-0, 17 goals, 10 assists, a plus 19. Jay Scott, we know, is a known commodity as a good player, but seems to really be tearing it up this season. Any other top scorers right now that are not a shock to you as you look at some of the guys who are leading in scoring?
I don't really notice any of these names. Like, I mean, there are a lot of new names, which
Right.
is cool. That's actually great. I like this.
Yeah.
Seeing the same name over and over just kind of gets old. Like, you expect those guys to be at the top, but when you see the new guys, that's a surprise and nice to see the league grow that way.
In the top,
It's saying that other guys are getting their chances.
in the top 10, with the exception of Crazy Try and HJHF, and then obviously Jay Scott, and I do know Lobo Dangles, but there's a whole bunch there who I don't even know who they are. I don't even know where they came from, but they seem to be doing a pretty good job. I'd be a little bit, Roller Pig to me seems a little puzzling because he's so high in points, but yet he's only got a 3-3 record. So I don't know how effective of a player he is.
Mm-hmm.
But there's definitely a lot of new names on that list. It takes until you get past the top 10 to where you really start seeing some guys that you're familiar with, or at least me anyway.
Yeah, and it's you mentioned Roller Pig, and yeah, he's a center with the Texas Stars. Came over from the Admirals just a few days ago, and so now they're going to have a chance to see what he could do for them. But for the Stars, the Admirals obviously finding a sell high point on Roller Pig and went ahead and did that. He was part of that Ty's Got Tush trade that happened a couple of days ago. You mentioned Roller Pig 3-3, 24 points, 12 goals, 12 assists, plus 5. He has a point in every game. He was on their TC roster last season. And the one thing, despite his numbers were okay, but he was a guy who was always available, who was more than happy to practice, very easy to communicate with, and now he's putting up numbers. To me, that makes him incredibly valuable. And at his maturity level and understanding of what his role is on the team, he never had a problem with it. Now this guy is lighting it up. He's fourth in scoring in the AHL. And to me, guys, that's the kind of player I look for if I'm management. And I think the Admirals have definitely strengthened their team with this trade.
Yeah, I mean, he looks good right off the page. Me personally, I would have to do a little bit more inquisition into him because, he does have the 3-3 record, which is a little bit odd for a player that's putting up points as much as he is.
Well, I'm looking back at his last 5 games here, and he's got 3 points and above in all of them but one. This is back when he was on the Admirals. He put up 1 assist in his last game, but he followed before that. He goes 5-3, 5-4, getting a hat trick in 2 of those ones. So he's putting up the points. It just looks like maybe the defense or the goalie is lacking.
He's putting up the points. He's a center who doesn't seem to do too good on the draw, and then he's the minus 52 in takeaways, minus giveaways. So, I mean, I would say the jury would still be out on this guy, even though he is putting up the points.
The combined opponents record, as I looked this up, Roller Pig, the combined teams that he's played so far are 48, 53, and 7. Only 2 of the 6 teams that he's played are over 500 right now in records. So, again, not really facing a lot of teams that are doing incredibly well right now, and so you got to wonder, is that an issue with the forward line? Is that a defensive issue? Haven't dug enough to find that out for sure, but we'll find out whether or not this continues on the Texas Stars. That was an issue with playing with the Admirals. I think we'll see what happens the next week or two. If his numbers are good and their record is good, then we may find the answer there.
I feel like Sibs just said that he might be King Blinging it a little bit. So has happened?
That's what I got.
No.
That definitely is what it sounds like.
Is that what you guys got? Because that's what I got.
Yeah, but at least King Bling won most of his games.
He did.
There you go.
There you go.
Well, no, I'm just saying. You know what? Unless you really look at all the games, it's kind of hard to see what's going on. But we'll see what happens in the next week. Whether or not he keeps producing and
We'll
helps
keep
his team
our eye
win.
on him.
Yeah.
We'll keep our eye on him.
The other guy,
Oh.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, looking at his weekly report card, it looks like he had a better week in week 1, then followed up with a bad week in week 2. So that might say something to his record.
Another guy.
Why he's 3-3.
Yeah. Another guy I wanted to talk about was Oriole Rules 44, right winger on Ontario. He is 2-2-2, 21 points, a -6, but he 11 goals, 10 assists. His combined opponent's record is 58, 40, and 10. All of the teams he's played against have been over 500, and so he's met some good competition, and yet hasn't come out with the wins, but has put up some numbers. Again, his plus-minus is a -6 right now. But here's a guy I've played with. I don't know how familiar you guys are with him, but I've played club with him a lot in the last off-season or two, and certainly has a skill and maybe never got the opportunity before. And now another one of those names that's risen up amongst the heap of players to show some productivity within the first 2 weeks. And again, how dangerous is this, Zeus, to look at these numbers of these guys early on after 2 weeks, and and say that wow, they're really doing well, they're good players. Do we know that yet about some of these guys that we're not familiar with?
Some of these guys, it could just be a simple matter of just they are unknown to the current management. So they're like, I don't know this player, they must be bad, so let me just put out my third line, and he goes out there and fucking shits on him.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a great point. Yeah.
That's something that could be happening. But now that they have produced, if I see Roller Pig in a game, then I'm not going to throw my third line out there on him. I want to see how well he can play, personally. And I'll go out there on the ice and I'll see what he can do when he gets like 6 players of forechecking into his face.
Yeah,
but
that's a great point. Yeah, again, if you're an unknown commodity and all of a sudden you're on the radar, that's going to affect who you want to play against.
Correct, and it also affects like how teams prepare the week. So I mean, mostly people have to have their lineups in by Sunday, obviously, 8 p.m. I think, or something like that.
Right.
And if you see on your lineup or on your schedule that you got the rain this week, and you're like, oh, they got that one guy, Oriole, he's doing really good. Let me make sure I just put out a semi-decent line to a good line, depending on your team, and see how he fares against them if he plays. And then you find out he doesn't play, and it's like their third line, you just completely face roll them.
Gotcha.
So, like, instantly, your entire team now has to play against tougher opponents. It's not just the player that's the affected; it's the actually entire team. Like in Chicago, every single game is a tough game because everyone sees us at the top with the Wild and the Monsters. So every single team puts out their best. No matter who I put out, it's still going to be their best more times than not. And it's good in a sense because that gives my team a lot of practice for basically playoff hockey. Like, we're already getting playoff hockey in the second week. It's retarded. And then there's other teams that'll just be like, oh, that team's really good. Let's just throw out a bad line so this way we can use our good line somewhere else. You know what I mean?
Right.
In which case that will negatively affect your team because now they're playing against lesser talent most of the season because of one player doing really well, and they want to avoid that one player.
There are a couple of other guys on this list that I like as players, and I think they're probably, from my experience, are probably a decent teammates. Jissy 31 on Providence so far 4-2 in the season, 11 goals, 10 assists, a +17. One of the, I think it's the second highest plus-minus behind Jay Scott. He's doing incredibly well for Providence. Did well in season 3 as well. HJHF, who you could talk about, Zeus. Again, 11 goals, 10 assists, a +9, 4-1-1 on the season. I've seen a couple of his games. Good leader on the ice, knows how to get his line mates set up, and does a hell of a job in running set plays and just somebody who I think has been a tremendous bonus for your team. And then, of course, there's this guy named Prince of Zeus at number 20 who is 6-0 on the season, 9 goals, 10 assists, a plus 14. The Wolves look fairly stacked, guys. And I can see why they're going after you because you guys are putting up numbers and you're winning games.
HJ is our team's leader in points at the moment. He is a phenomenal player. I can put him with anybody and he will do well, personally. His 2 losses come from me having to put him in a sticky situation. He went up against he messaged me the stat. It was kind of funny. He faced I think it was like $35 million worth of defenders in the first week. And I was like, I'm sorry. So he went 1-1-1 in week 1, and then in week 2 he was back with his line with me and I2797. The 3 of us play outside of LG all the time when I get a chance, honestly, because I'm doing so many other things. But the 3 of us have got like really good chemistry, and he does really well no matter like what situation we put him in. If we decide to run set plays, if we decide to go chaos style, if we decide to play extremely fast, which he's not too comfortable doing. He is more of the controlled, slow, kind of lull you into a sleep kind of style, which I'm not against, because players like that will inevitably speed the game up for players that like to play fast, like myself. So if you have a center that's running the play probably we'll say 75% speed, and I'm still going 100, I'm going to blaze right past your defense every time because you're going to be focused on the puck and not me.
Gotcha.
And that's just how it works. That's how even regular hockey works. Like if you look at in real life, the Florida Panthers, they got Yager, Barkov, and Huberdeau. Yager's 42 or some shit, but he's got 2 young guns at I think Huberdeau's 21 and Barkov's 20 or something like that. But they play faster because he plays slower. And it works. Like, they're one of the best lines in the league. Like, seriously.
You mentioned
tore up the Eastern Atlantic last year with that.
Right. You mentioned I2797, who's also in the top 20. And then you also have Squall, who is number 12 in scoring. You've got 4 out of 20 of the top 20 scorers right now. And I'll throw it over to Vibes. Does that help your club at all to be successful when you've got that much in the way of guys who are contributing?
Having 4 of the top 20 scorers? No, absolutely not at all. How would that help?
Well, the kind of chemistry that Zeus is talking about, and look, we just heard him talk about the way that they run plays. How much more of an advantage is it? Now, again, we'll let Vibes answer first, and then we'll get Cosmo's play on it. When you've got a line that is so organized that they are running set plays, how much more of an advantage is that over a typical team that you're playing every night?
Oh, it's a huge advantage. If you play together a lot and you guys know what you're going to do, and you can basically do things on the ice without thinking, and the other team has to think about it and try and catch up. But real quick, I just want to give I guess you can call it a plug to HJ. That kid is sick. That kid is ridiculous. If you've ever watched any of the games that he's in, he is ridiculous. He's probably one of the best one-on-one players in the league, to be honest with you.
Right.
So, I mean, when you got a player like him on your team or your line, it's going to be successful.
Without question. Cosmo, again, this kind of production and this kind of line chemistry that these guys have with, that Zeus has with his line mates, what does that mean when you could put up a line like that three times a week?
Well, I'm first going to start off with Zeus. I'm disappointed that you guys aren't number 1, 2, and 3. But That's a huge advantage. If you guys have chemistry through like that, you're gonna be putting up points every night. You're more than likely gonna come out of that game with at least one, if not 2 points. Especially if you have the defense like the Wolves have. I played one game with them, and I was pretty bored back there, to be honest with you.
They got a defense so good they made Cosmo look good.
There you go.
It was a fun game to be in, but just watching them play was more exciting than just being in the game itself. And we played it. I think it was the Bears, and I know they're a good team, and I was expecting it to be a tight game the whole time. And the way Zeus and HJ and I just execute, it throws teams off. Especially HJ. He fakes one way, goes the other, and everybody looks stupid.
And they're a good combination, those three, because they're three different types of players that kind of work well together. That's the other thing, too. They're not all the same type of player.
Right.
Which definitely works into their advantage.
Well, people can get a chance to watch Chicago again on this week's edition of Thursday Night Hockey. We're going to be carrying live the Cleveland Monsters and the Chicago Wolves, which should be a hell of a matchup. Two teams that are incredibly hot. As we've been talking about, Chicago, Cleveland has a pretty stacked roster as well. We know Jay Scott and Deer Hunter up there as 2 and 3 in scoring for Cleveland. And so this could be a nice shootout to watch. But again, with both teams' defenses, we don't know how that one's going to go, but it's going to be fun to watch. Again, this Thursday night, 9:30 here, and we'll have the link up. We have the link up now on the main AHL page that you'll be able to tap on and watch the game Thursday night with us as we call all the action. The Monsters and the Wolves, Thursday night hockey here on LeagueGaming.com. Let's move on quickly to just transactions, just in general. Couple of trades this week that were kind of noticeable. I know the one that my team was involved in, as the Bears sent Levac and Boogeyman to the Monsters for Cash Cormier. I know that Mafia Man and Bobby both believe Cash is a really good fit for the Bears, and certainly a good quality players going back to the Monsters. Interesting to see a team like the Monsters making moves because they are so successful. They also made one later in the week where they sent Mike the Neff and Mr. Miller 54 to the Roadrunners for Optimus Rhyme. That was last Sunday, just before 5 p.m. When they made that trade. And so they added another solid player to their team. Even though they're successful, they're making those moves. And so I thought those were a couple of interesting ones, along with the Marlies sending JG 3542, underrated gloves, Dirk Nowitzki to the Checkers for Shadow Merc, Justin 203, and Showstopper 420. Any of those trades you guys want to talk about, or is there anything else as far as another trade that you thought was interesting this past week?
I'd like to touch on the Cash one. To me, that's a fair trade, going both ways. But I've played with Cash and VG. He was on my team for a while, and he's one of those players who can dangle around you. He can put it in the net. He can play defense if need be. So he's a good back checker if he's a forward. And he's really good with the sauce. I've never seen someone who can sauce the puck and make it land right on the tape every time. He's got that thing down. So the Bears picked up a great player in Cash, and I don't blame them for trying to pick him up and getting a deal done.
I do agree Cash is the best player in that trade, but it's also a lot to give up in Levac 27 and Boogeyman. That's pretty heavy price. So.
And as far as the waiver wire is concerned, a lot of players, as I looked at the waiver wire, again, something we've already discussed before, and so we don't necessarily have to dwell on it too much, but a lot of guys that we're seeing moving around in waivers are a lot of players that we've seen who started out in the first 3 seasons of this league in the AHL, fairly steady players, and now they're getting moved around a lot more. I got to believe, again, that has a lot to do with the big player pool and that there's a lot more to choose from. Just because you've had experience in this league doesn't mean you're going to stick around on a team. And it kind of feels like that's sort of what I'm seeing, guys.
Well, I mean, me personally, I was waived. So I got waived by, and I'm not going to get into anything on air here, but I got waived by, I guess, people who don't know what they're doing. And so, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that going on. There's a lot of players who have been here from really the get-go who are getting waived, and there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of talent to be had. There's a lot of talent going around, so I guess certain players are being pushed.
It sounds like no one wants Vibes on their team. He's getting waived in all kinds of leagues.
Yeah, nobody wants me.
Well, that's a whole nother topic, and we only have a few more minutes left to go of the show, so maybe we'll do a separate one just on you at some point.
The sad story of Vibes.
It'll be a 30 for 30, Just be a really... bans and suspensions, I don't want to touch too much on this. We know that today Lazy Eye received one. Yansanity is talking about leaving due to health issues. At least he said that in management chat in the shout box. We'll see how that's going. But he and Jay Giroux, 2-game suspensions to be served this week because of roster limitations and when transactions happened and how they kind of overlapped, and all of a sudden you wind up with somebody on your, you wind up with an extra player on your team when you weren't intending to do that. I want to talk a little bit about that part of it. Again, since you guys are either management now or have been, what's the best way to address the issue and making sure as a GM that you are not putting yourself in a position where you could be knocking yourself out for a couple of games because you're not paying attention enough to what's going on with your roster?
Pay attention.
Yeah, pay attention to your roster.
Yeah, but I'm gonna take a page out of Haji's book here and just say Constitution.
Myself then.
Because that's basically what it is. Know the rules. Make sure you know what you're doing. Did we just talk about Lazy? Did we just mention him that he's received the ban now, or did we not bring him up?
Yeah, no, I did bring him up. We didn't get any detail of it, and I don't know if that's been made public yet. I know Zeus and I were talking about it a little bit earlier, and I hadn't seen any specifically any details about what was going on with that.
Well, I think that's still breaking news, right?
Pretty much, yeah. Like, it's a GM that's been removed from the league. There's nothing in the Action Center as to details as to why. The only thing I've seen is from Lazy Eye, a.k.a. Stoner himself, and he said that his owner put in the removal request for him. So he wasn't happy with the way his AHL team was being ran, apparently, so he pulled the plug.
Now...
Wait, hold on a second.
Yeah, I'm getting a little confused here, and so
wait.
We have the wrong names, I think. So we're talking about now. I think who we're trying to talk about is Lazy, aka Stoner, correct?
Right. That's
correct.
Okay.
Wait,
That's
so
what
you're telling me that his owner is the one that put in for his removal?
That's what he has said in both the shout box and in the manager's chat.
Really?
Yep. So, I mean, like I said, nothing's been posted on the Action Center as per the details as to why he was removed. But if that's what he's saying, that's what we got to go off of.
He received... Hang on a second, Cosmo. So he received the ban for that?
The only way to remove management is via ban. There is no just taking the label off of the player's name because the player doesn't have a contract. The manager does not have a contract. So the only way to get rid of a non-contracted player is via ban. So...
That's interesting.
Wow.
I'm looking here at the ban list. It says that he was removed, has no description, but he's banned until the end of season 5.
Yeah, 2-season ban for with no details. A lot of us in the manager's chat were saying, "Yo, you need to go appeal this because there's no reasoning."
So
that we
there's,
can
yeah,
see.
I was just gonna say, so there's nothing that he really did aside from their owner deciding that he didn't like the way that he was running the club, so he was.
I guess. I mean, the guy's got a good roster. That's the thing. Like, it's not like it's a bad roster. Like, they just have a lot of unlucky games. That, and they're in the Western fucking Central. Like, come on. Like, I can go out and say, if you put this team in the Western Pacific, they'll be middle of the pack to top tier.
I didn't think that you could do something like that.
Owners have a lot of power.
Yeah, but they get a player banned just because they don't like the way they're running the club?
It's up to the discretion of the owner. I know Mafia Man was saying that an owner has the right to remove management for any given reason at any given time.
But then how does a ban ensue?
That is the discretion of
that doesn't sit right with me.
No, it doesn't with me either. Because the last thing I need is, let's just say, like, you know, God forbid, my owner says I'm doing a shit job.
Yeah.
God, I hope not. And like, I just stop listening to his advice or whatever, and then he pulls the plug on me. It's like, what did I do wrong, dude?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't see anything wrong.
If there's a personality conflict between you and the owner, he can get you banned. I don't know.
Personally, that's a gamble that, as a GM, you're willing to take. In a sense, don't GM for someone you don't get along with. That's just throwing that out there for all future players that want to become managers. If you don't get along with an owner, don't be his GM.
I think that's the one thing that we've definitely uncovered is that it's dangerous to take management in this league, isn't it? Is it dangerous or what?
Yeah, it's dangerous. Health reasons, medical reasons.
I mean, this is World War II minefield dangerous.
Well, hopefully we'll get more information on what's going on with this ban of Lazy, aka Stoner, and you know, he was GM over in Grand Rapids. We'll hopefully get some more information there. But that's the latest one that we've talked about. And again, Giroux and Yansanity serving 2-game suspensions. Famous T Nasty was given a 2-season ban earlier this week as he refused to play, which is going to get you banned immediately.
Well, it should.
Those are the notable ones that we talked about. And hopefully down the road and more shows we're going to get... we're hopefully going to get Man Bear Pig on more readily on the show, and John Sheldon, and get these guys to talk about some of the issues so we get things clarified for you and not a lot of speculation. We don't want to become a shoutbox radio show. We want to actually try and give you the actual details as to why these things are happening. So hopefully we'll get more of that for you. We can talk about it next week and clear up some of that. Let's move to the final segment, the teams to watch. And again, I'll start first with Rockford. They went 4-5 this past week. They beat the Pens to start the week, a 3-2 victory on Sunday night. And they also wound up beating Ontario. They shut out Hartford on Tuesday and beat Bridgeport on Wednesday. We shut them out. I played that game against Rockford on Wednesday night as the Bears shut out Rockford 4-0. And again, some of what I talked about last week is sort of what I saw in that game as well. Some issues trying to get the puck up the ice. Some issues trying to help out their goaltender, and just, you know, nothing really working well for them in that game. And so a 4-0 shutout. Their win against the Sound Tigers on Wednesday, which was right after the Hershey game, was an interesting one. Their goaltender for that one is Sean. He made a couple of point-blank saves in the first period that would have put them down early right away, but he played well all night in net. It was no score after one. Rockford then took the lead, got more scoring chances, and were moving the puck a lot better. Took advantage of some sloppy defense and bad positioning by the Tigers. And Nemodio 98 and the Raw Meat Patty were able to get them on the board. 2-0 Rockford after 2. Bridgeport came back, caught the Rockford defense pinching a little bit, which they had trouble with even in the first 2 periods, but got away with it. But then Bridgeport was able to take advantage of it a couple of times, and that was where they were able to come back and make it 2-1. Rockford answered back with another goal by Nemodio, and was able to slip an easy shot past Trap MC. He had a bit of a tough game for Bridgeport, but they came back again a couple of minutes later, made it 3-2. But after that, with 11 minutes remaining in the game, from that point on, Rockford just locked down. They were they were playing the way they should have been the whole game. Good passing, accurate passing, forwards coming back to help out D. Intro and Inception then were staying back a lot more in defense, and they were not letting Bridgeport get behind them. Much better second half of the third period, and that's where the scoring stopped. It was a 3-2 final. Again, the way they played that second half of the third period is the way that Rockford should look to play all the time. Don't take a lot of chances. You don't necessarily have that kind of makeup to do that with your team. Play more defensively, wait for the opportunities, make good passes. That's kind of what I'm getting about Rockford. That's really the main thing that I'm seeing them. When they do that well, they win. When they don't do that well, they get blown out. And so Rockford, not a great week, but 4-5. They're trying to stay within the pack, and they just need to work on the defense a little bit more and support 2 pretty decent goaltenders that are on their team. Give them a little bit more defensive support. I think they're going to find themselves with better opportunities. I don't know who wants to go next. Just shout out if you guys are ready to talk about your teams. I know Cosmo was looking at Cleveland. Zeus was looking at Texas, and Vibes is on the Pens, and so now he could certainly. Well, why don't we start with you, Vibes? Obviously, you've gotten to watch your team now play up close and personal. How did the Pens do in week 2? We know that they were 1-8, but talk more about what actually happened with your team and why they went down that road.
Just not getting it done. I mean, there's far too much talent on this team. You look at some of the games that they played this week, and they're not scoring. 1 goal versus Iowa, 1 goal versus Chicago, 2 goals versus Grand Rapids. And I mean, Grand Rapids is not doing so hot right at this moment. So they're just not getting it done. They're a team who does have a very solid defense, but if I was to really point at a strength here, it's going to be the offense. So when you're not producing, it's just you're not going to win. And they've had a hellacious week, a terrible week. But I think they'll rebound. They're still they're my team to watch, and not just because I'm on them. Well, I wasn't when I originally said that, but I think they'll rebound. There's far too much talent on this team, especially down the middle. I think maybe I'm not going to try and do anyone's job for them, but I think maybe they might want to look at moving out of a right wing position into maybe a natural left wing position to add a little more balance to this lineup.
Which player are you looking to move, or you think should move?
I'm not going to say.
Oh, you're not going to say. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no particular play. I'm just saying that maybe they might want to move out of a right wing. And maybe invest into a more natural left winger. They picked up Steele this week, by the way. Yes. I didn't even mention that, but they pick up Steele 243, and Steele he's a potent offensive player. He's had a little bit of personality clashes with people before, so you have to know how to handle him. But he's a good player. He's an offensive player, and if you use him the right way, he can be a great asset.
Zeus, you were looking at Texas. Get a chance to catch up with how they're doing?
Wasn't able to watch any of their games personally. Just had a really hectic week at work. A lot of shit was breaking, so I had to fix it. But they made a lot of interesting trades. You know, they brought in what looks to be, they brought in Sabres 930 off of a trade. He's sitting on their TC.
Right.
They picked up Reaper's Rage, it looks like, who is not having the best year, I think. But they made a lot of moves. They got rid of a sniper, Waka Waka, Finnick, to bring in Reaper's Rage and Corey and Cryptic Husker. Aside from that, you know, losing Stand-Up Turtle, getting in Sabres, that's always a good thing to have.
Mm-hmm.
The big trade they had this week with bringing in Roller Pig, that's really going to make them a lot more threatening.
Right.
The offensive front. They have a couple of forwards who are not doing too hot, but, you know, I know Charbin, he'll bounce back. He's a good player.
Yeah.
But I see he's been playing a lot of tough opponents, so, like, he's not one to shy away from a challenge. That's why he's not doing so well. But if you're playing against Texas, he's still a player you want to watch out for, no matter what his record may look like. But then you got Crazy Try, who, you know, I think he got Team of the Week for his team this week, I believe. No. Yes. No. Yes, he did. He got Player of the Week this week for his team.
Right.
You know, he's had a couple of bad seasons in the NHL, I believe, with Washington the last 2 seasons, so it's seasons 2 and 3. And, you know, he's back with familiar faces in front of him and around him. You know, Fucked is his GM, Season 1 Ice Cap, Charbin, Season 1 Ice Cap, Apollo, Season 1 Ice Cap. You know, even
Right.
I think Dragon Slayer was part of that team at one point, too. So, I mean, he's got a lot of players that he's familiar with. And you can see that. Like, he's having a lot of success, you know, especially going against the Crunch, 7-0. Crazy Try had 5 points in that game. Dragon Slayer faced 4 shots. Like, and he didn't go against, it's the Crunch. No, he went against Sifik, Leroy, Nazi Two-Face, JM Light, and Ilat. And they had I Ham and Cheese in net. So it wasn't like it was their, like, pushover line. It was their good line. But they just got completely shit on that game. But then they lost to teams like the St. John's Ice Caps, who I think are not doing too hot this season. Same for Rochester Americans. They're not doing too well this season.
Right.
Albany hasn't hit their stride, but they'll come around. They lost to the Marlies, but almost everybody has lost to the Marlies so far. And then they lost 6-1 to Manitoba. I wouldn't expect that to be a loss. I would expect it to be a lot closer than that, though. That's for sure. But then they beat teams like Rockford 2-1, which is a little alarming considering the season Rockford's had.
Right.
But then they went out and beat Utica Comets, who have been on the up and up. So they were able to beat teams that have been kind of surging towards the front of the standings convincingly, because they beat the Comets 6-2.
It's good to see them beat good teams, but that's got to be a bit worrisome to the management when you see them beat a good team, but then lose to somebody that they should handle fairly well.
Correct. Yeah.
That's
but
scary.
Then that's them bringing in Roller Pig, right?
Right.
So they did just bring in a high point player who was on Admirals, who aren't doing the greatest.
Right.
You know, they're 6-11, so it's kind of hard to see how well he'll do. But now he's transitioning over to a 10-7 Texas team, who is second in the Western Pacific. So maybe the change of atmosphere will let Roller Pig become an even better player. It just depends on who they put around him.
Right.
But I would feel they're going to put him up for success. Either have him play with Charbin and Rockstar, or Kamaler, who they just obtained from, I think, Bakersfield.
Mm-hmm.
So they're gonna. I don't know. I think Texas will be a better week 3. They went, as I said, 4-5. Don't think any of these were overtime losses. If they are, I'll be surprised, because 4-0, 6-2, 3-2, 6-1, 5-4 losses. 2 of those could be OT. The rest of them are blowouts. So if that synergy clicks really fast, they're going back home to the Western Pacific. They play us on Monday. So we'll see how that goes. They play the Wild on Wednesday. They play Stockton on Wednesday as well. So they got easily 3 very tough matches right there. But the rest of them is Western Pacific. So we'll
Well,
see how it goes.
yeah, it looks like Dallas is going to be a fun team to watch in the coming weeks. Kaz, you're watching your buddy Jay Scott on Cleveland, and they are obviously doing well. They're in the Western Central, so they're up against a couple of, quite a few good teams in that division, but they're still holding their own at 14-3-1. What kinds of things did you see from the Monsters this week?
Well, I didn't actually get to watch a game. I did talk to Jay Scott a couple times. He is pretty upset he isn't producing at the level he was week 1, but you can't keep up 6 points a game all season.
Mm-hmm.
They've come out in week 2. They went 8-1. They won games that they should have won. They lost one game. They should have won the game. They played the Roadrunners, lost 3-2. Not sure if that's an overtime game. Doesn't look like it. To start the week, they shit on the Thunderbirds 10-2. I was doing the math while Zeus was talking. Throughout the week of week 2, they put up 48 goals while only letting 21 in. So they're scoring at a rate of almost 2-1, which is going to get you wins. Because you're ahead if you're scoring 2-1 every time.
Mm-hmm.
If they keep up this rate, I would say that they have a solid chance to pass the Wolves and Iowa. As much as I hate to say that because I'm on the Wolves TC, but keeping that kind of pace up, if you're going to go 8-1, 7-2, 6-3 every week, you're expecting the other teams to have to go that, keep that pace as well to, for you not to pass them.
Well, Cleveland's got, they've got Charlotte later on tonight, but they've got a couple of games like Grand Rapids, maybe Bakersfield, Milwaukee certainly having their troubles, Rockford depending on what line they put up, San Jose. They've got winnable games, but they've got to play Charlotte, Iowa, and Chicago this week.
They also play, they play Iowa, Chicago, Charlotte.
Yeah, late Wednesday and Thursday is going to be a tough part of their schedule this week. But they definitely have a plus side schedule for week 3 that they can come out with a winning record. Really could easily come out of this with 6-3, 7-2.
Oh, easily. That's an easy one, and like you said, Jay Scott's my buddy, and I wish him the best. But if he's playing Thursday, Zeus has said I'm in that game, so I hope he's off his game that day.
Right, of course.
But I wish for a good game that game, and I wish him the best all season. Looks like he and Deer Hunter are a solid line pair. They seem to be putting up the most points. So right. I don't know who their left wing is. Could be split. So.
All right, so that's where we are as far as the teams that we've been watching. Before we get going, I know Vibes wants to talk a little bit about what a project he's been working on, which is the Plays of the Week. And I know you and I and actually the entire team talked a little bit about that, and we bounced around some ideas about where to go with this, but we're trying to find a way to promote what you guys are doing out there in games and give you a little more notoriety. We could talk about you, but it's also fun to be able to show people what you guys are doing. And I know, Vibes, you want to talk a little bit about where you're heading with this project.
Yeah, I actually just went to the bathroom because Zeus was channeling his inner Cosmo, and then Cosmo was going next. So I knew I had like an hour. So plenty of time.
Okay. Now it's your turn.
Yeah, I think I'm going to start talking more Monopoly over here. What do you call it? It would be great for people to actually send in some videos. This way I don't have to make like a Princess Zeus highlight reel. Because at this current point in time, that's what I have for videos. So if you want to get some notoriety, if you want to see your plays, send in the videos.
And listen, if we get a bunch of submissions from one person and that's what we have, we'll highlight a player. We don't mind doing that, and you'll get a chance to you'll get a chance to show off some of your talent, and we'll talk a little bit about it as we play it back for the for everybody watching, and we'll get it up on the league side as well, and make sure that everybody sees that as part of our weekly media. So get in touch with Vibes on LG, or if you need to talk to me as well.
Let me add something to that real quick.
Sure.
Sorry to cut you off. Actually,
hold on before you add something.
No, it's quick. It's quick.
Wait, hold on. Wait, I was about to go. You
Shut
shut
your mouth.
up.
Shut up. Make your way out the door.
If we can't get enough videos for the plays of the week, I'm just going to start doing player spotlights.
Right. But what I was going to say is, make sure it's an LG sanctioned match.
Yes.
Because people are going to start trying to put in submissions like, "Oh, I did this in club." I don't care.
Yeah.
Make sure it's an LG sanctioned match.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah, it has to be. You have to tell us what game it was, and just some details so that when we look at the highlight, we'll know if that's true or not.
Or if you are gonna lie to me, at least be like sharp about it. Don't send me a video of Team Russia versus Kazakhstan. You know what I mean? Because then it's just obvious.
All right, so get your submissions in the Vibes, and we will hopefully start showing some of that here on the show. And if not, definitely get it up on the league website. Any final thoughts, guys, as we're getting ready to wrap up here?
Yeah, I said Kazakhstan. I think it's just Kazakhstan.
Yeah. It's Kazakhstan. I wasn't going to correct you because if I had to do that, the show would be double the size.
Oh, that's my final.
I just figured it was a Boston accent. So.
Well,
you know.
Yeah. So, again, this Thursday night hockey for Week 3, the Cleveland Monsters at the Chicago Wolves. We don't have any lineups just yet. I'm not asking Zeus to tell us, but my guess is we're going to see a couple of big lines in that one, I would think. And that's going to be our game of the week on Thursday night. So check us out then. Again, the link is up on the LG AHLPSN page right now. You see 2 links up there, one for this show and then one for the game. When it's live, you'll be able to go there and click on it and watch the live broadcast of the game. So that's it for this week, for Week 3 of LG AHLPSN. Again, want to thank Vibes and Princess Zeus and Cosmo for joining me today. Fellas, have a good week.
You too.
Kazakhstan, there you go. That's it, everyone. T-Sip saying so long, and we will talk to you after Week 3 next Sunday afternoon.